You. And we're live. Okay. Hi, Joellen.
Hello.
Well, that's enthusiastic. Awesome. Like the nice star in the world. All right. So let's just, I'm going to take this out for a second so you and
Let's
I
see
can.
who's here.
Yeah, that's the first thing is anyone who's here, let us know you're there. Tell us who
Eager
you are
beavers.
and where you are in the world. Fun. Oh, I see Kara. I know she's out in Victoria, not Victoria, in Nanaimo, and Lucy's in the UK. I know her, and M.W. Campbell. Oh, my favorites are all here. Yay. So nice.
Let's see here. SoCal, UK. I'm in Tenerife, in Spain. Let's see some Europeans and Americans out there.
Yeah, so Tenerife is where?
It is in the Canary Islands off the west coast of Africa, just down from Portugal.
So you're a little island woman.
You know the life. You know the life, sailor
I,
girl.
I do. I do. So,
Olathe, Kansas. Woohoo! I'm from Salina originally. Hello, hello. Oh, sorry, I have to give them encouragement, right?
I know. Yes. Okay. Well, let's just get going because I think we have a lot to cover. This is the fourth in the series of Editing Essentials. And as everybody knows, Joelle and I have been working together for years now. Me with Fictionary, a software for writers and editors, and Joellen runs an editing company, not just of story coach editors, but also all kinds of editors for fiction and nonfiction and academic. And so she's going to tell you a little bit about that and how everybody fits into the process. So we want to basically, go through the final thing of bringing it all together and what you need to know for story editing. So welcome to Ellen.
Thank you, thank you. And of course, all of our editors have been certified as story coach editors. So that's developmental story editing from First Editing, and that's how Christina and I have connected the most. And it's been very interesting, and I think it's very exciting the way we're revolutionizing the way of editing, not only for authors but for the editors. So it's a combination of the two, and I think it's really important that people understand that as these technologies go forward, there's no stopping us. So you need to join on and do as much as you can because it just keeps driving fast. It's that whole technology. So anyhow, this is the fourth of our 4-part series. If you haven't seen the other 3, we will get those links out to you to our lists after this. And today we have a handout. If you scroll to the top of the comments there, if you want to download it now, you can, or later, whichever you like. Tried to do it in advance this time because I know we fell behind it before. So we have editing essentials number 4, and it's how to edit like a pro is what we're going to be doing today. So I'll be talking from the point of view of how we as story coaches do it, and Christina will be giving the presentation from how you do it yourself using the Storyteller, which is the software similar to what we use as story coach editors. So it's a great combination. And of course, we've also done a whole 38 separate interviews on how to do all these with, you can even do it independently if you're really, really eager. But I would tell you to, use the tool.
Yeah, we're not biased anyway. Okay, Joellen, I'm going to put up your charts and let's just let her rip.
Excellent, excellent. So how to edit like a pro. I'm going to scroll down here, make sure I can touch my buttons. All right. So we have 10 steps because Christina loves the number 10. And it actually fits very, very well. And we're going to go through each of these, but this is to get you started. Basically, always your editing is going to depend upon what your manuscript needs. That's the basis, that's the foundation. And really what we're talking about is certified editors have tools and specialties and a way of being comprehensive and making sure that they cover your genre and your needs without overlooking anything. And the other point that we look at is where are you in the editing phase, because it's not linear. So you're not going from developmental editing to content editing to line editing to copy editing to formatting and then proofreading. You're not going direct. Sometimes you're jumping back and forth depending upon what you need and what your goals are and what your editor says you have to do at this certain area and what revisions happen. And sometimes revisions take you on a whole different course. So you don't know. It's life, as we've learned. You never know. And then basically we're going to cover the who, what, who you can trust, what impacts your editing, And then you also need to know when to approach the editor, which services you need, where you can find help. There's a lot of this free. As we're sitting here today, this is free. This is all information out there. Why editing is necessary, regardless if it's the high end, low end, wherever it may be, what everyone edits, and how it's going to help you reach your goals. So those are our 10 points. Christina,
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy you have 10 points just for me. I'll just,
and
book. So this book, Joellen and Lisa Lepke from Proofreading Aid and I wrote it together. I get almost 2 years ago now, right? Because
exactly.
cover. I focus on story editing, and Lisa focuses on copy editing, and Joellen focuses on professional editing. And provide for professional, I mean, there's a human being there. We used to call it human editing, but Joellen felt that was her, so we now call it professional editing.
Maybe we still have to be here.
It's got an in-depth look from all three perspectives on how to story edit, copy edit, and work with a professional editor. So it's free to download. The link's at the top. You can click and go ahead and get that.
Excellent. So we're going to work through our 10 steps just to go through. So this is our first step, and it's how do you evaluate what your manuscript needs? And I'm going to show you a little bit of how editors evaluate this. They're trying to determine if you need one of these types of editing. Do you need copy editing, which is the most basic, align editing, which is normally if somebody says you need to get an edit, this is what they're talking about as the base level. Or do you need a content edit, which would be more syntax, more comprehension, more prose, the skills, all of those things going on? Or is it developmental story edit, which is what we've been talking about for the last 3 episodes. And that's your story arc, your setting, your characters, etc. So you can compare the fiction editing services. In the handouts, there's some links there. And I know everybody here is a reader, so get the reading on. But the highest level of editing is developmental, and that is followed by content. Sometimes you have to do content before you can do developmental, just to make sure your prose, everything's comprehensible to your editors, so then they can really focus on the structure and the movement and how they need to align that. Align editing is where humans come in, and of course the copy editing. So you love talking to painters and planners and all that, Christina. And they're using a lot of your tools there.
Yeah, and that's right. And so, just to follow through on how you know what level you're at, when you're at self-editing and you want to start an actual story edit, it's when you have a draft complete. And that means, it sounds really simple, but it's a very important complex. You have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. There needs to be an inciting incident and a climax. The story has to resolve itself. And when you have all of that in the in-between scenes, you can start doing a story edit. Until you have that, your story structure is not quite there. And so if you don't have that yet, it's not time to go to a professional editor. If you do have it, then you can make that choice. Do you want to continue and really work on your book ahead of time, or do you want to go forward? And it doesn't matter if you're an actual pantster, planner, plotter, whatever term you want to use, or anywhere in between. What matters at this point is once you have a story, then you've got decisions to make, and you need an organized process, whether you're working on your own and do it yourself, or with a professional editor and do it for you. My new acronym, Joelle, in this series, that, or done for you. I'm sorry, not do it for you, done for you.
No, we do it for you.
It's, you've got choices to make, and this is what we're trying to help you with when you're thinking along through your process.
Right. And I mean, the way that we're presenting this basically is that, if you're using the tools and you're looking at the scenes that we've gone through and you're evaluating their strength, and then you're building up from the scenes and chapters into the overall story arc, and you're making sure, and the story arc even leads into your series, etc., which we covered in depth in the last series, in the last edition, is basically, making sure that you're using a system. And why we're showing you this behind the scenes is this is how we do it as editors. And the more that you understand the process, the better conversation we can have, the better we can help you. You can come directly knowing some of your weaknesses, knowing what your strengths are, and telling your editor up front so they can confirm or, you know, respond to these things and help you get exactly what you're looking for, and they can point out exactly what you need. So, and every author comes to us asking, is it any good? So if you're at that stage saying, is it any good? And you're just looking at the story, you're not revising your characters and your little styles and making sure it all, you know, is shiny and nice, you're at that developmental edit stage. So, and I'm not going to read all this to you, but basically it is the high level. This is where we're looking at the story arcs, the settings, characters, plot, etc. And we're making sure, and the developmental editor is working their way through that, which is what we've been talking about now for 4 sessions.
And this is my favorite part, of course.
Of course. That's why we're working together, because it is certified. And we like to mention that, you know, we've talked about fiction, but of course, this also includes nonfiction when you have a memoir or even history and different things that are given in a narrative, where it is using a story where you have the need to have that beginning, middle, and end, and that overall resolution there. So if you need help determining that, if you have a nonfiction, then of course it can also be using these same techniques and the same method.
Yeah, so let's just talk about an example there so people can see. So I'll pick a famous example, Moneyball. And I've totally forgotten the author's name, which is terrible, but he also did the short. And terrible. Anyway, Moneyball is a narrative nonfiction. So it's a true story. It has a narrator. It has a point of view. And so I went through, and all 3 of this gentleman's books have been turned into wildly popular movies. And so I got curious about why, you know, and so I started reading Moneyball. I am not a baseball fan. I don't know anything about it. Lots of people love it. That's great. But I started reading this book and thought, well, I can't put it down. That's ridiculous. Okay. So then I started looking at it, and I look at, there's an entry hook, there's a point of view, there's tension, there's conflict, there's weaved in backstory, and you know, the whole character arc is there, and you can see it's written like a novel, except it's a true story. And so for story editing, whether you're using Storyteller or you're hiring a professional editor, with a narrative nonfiction, it's an amazing fit. And so I was kind of excited to read that I hadn't really paid much attention to the narrative nonfiction until I started to think about all these stories that get converted into movies. So there's got to be something there.
Oh, well, storytelling is what the human brain is built upon. Our memory is built upon that. That's a foundation of everything that happens. We have a comment here. It's called The Big Short.
Thank you. Thank you. Someone is just keeping my memory up to date there.
Exactly. But stories are what connect us. It gives us all the important things. So anytime we connect any information in a story for memory or for whatever purposes, the story is what the brain needs, because it puts it into context, and that's what we need. So again, if you're going to write a nonfiction book, and we do nonfiction editing, you know, if it's an inspirational, motivational, or educational book, still, if you can organize it from the beginning, if you can structure it and develop it as a story, inside that, it's so much easier for your readers, because they connect with you and they are following along versus just getting more information. I mean, think about it. Would you rather read a book about stories, or would you rather read a textbook with just information that you're absorbing, depending upon your goals for the day? But again, I do encourage you, regardless, to weave in the stories as we go along. So content editors, you know, and I'm basing this outline not upon the written in stone absolutes of editing, because the definitions have been floating around forever. But having been in the game for so long, and having to work with a team of editors and thousands of authors who come in, we define them this way within First Editing. So we have at the top, we have our developmental story editing with certified story coaches. And then under that, we have content editing. We do 2 levels of that. We have an executive content edit, and we have, you know, our standard content edit, meaning that we're going to dig farther into your comprehension, your prose. We're looking to make sure it is clear to your readers and to your editor what your intent is. And so sometimes if you are trying to get a point across and it's failing because of your syntax, because of the language barrier, or something like that, we might start with the content edit before we go into the story edit. So again, it's circular, it's round. There's no one way. There's no a single path. Everyone needs to go on their own based upon what they need, what they want, and what their editor says that has to happen to keep it going. Line editing, again, is after this. This is when you're doing your revisions. Again, you're going in, you're cleaning up, you're making sure your style, that your details match, that your syntax, your grammar, spelling, punctuation is all strong, but you're still ready to make changes and updates according to the English grammar and what you need in that sense for clarity, but not to strengthen your characters, to strengthen your story arc, not to change your scenes or your plot or your settings, any of that. That's all been done at developmental. So I hope this becomes a little clearer. And we go through this again and again because, this is what we're doing every day. But, you're writing every day and it's a little different. So it's very important that we have the same vocabulary there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And in
the same language.
Exactly. And one of the important things is to understand that, not only are we looking at your genre, when you talk to us, we're first looking at the division, is it fiction, nonfiction? Because you're going to need different types of editors, not only for the level of editing, but for the type of the divisional of editing, which is, if you're doing academic, you want somebody who knows your subject matter. If you're doing research, you want somebody who's been through this process, who has successfully published in journals, who has a PhD. If you're doing nonfiction, you want to have the call to actions. You want to have the intent of what is your purpose as the author. Are you trying to drive more traffic? Are you trying to sell more books? Are you trying to get promoted as the expert? And in fiction editing, how are you developing your story? How are you connecting? Are you connecting this not only to your chapters and your scenes? How's your series outline? How's your world building, your character development, all this stuff that just is so much. So, and of course on these you can write and do a lot of this because you have the availability to use inside Storyteller and Story Coach, the software. So you can do a lot of the basic corrections, even the copy editing, which is your grammar, spelling, punctuation, are available. And I do want to mention, people come in copy editing. I mean, how many times people called you and said, "Oh, I need a copy edit," and you go, "Copy edit? We don't do copy edit." But the term falls off the tongue. Copy editing is the final edit. You're not going to change anything. We just found a typo. You're not going to change anything. Your subject verb agreement doesn't work there. So we fixed it. Now you're going into formatting. And of course, your copy editors are totally different type of editors from your developmental editors. So you want to make sure on that. And I'll keep pushing along here because there's a lot to cover. But again, copy editing and all of this is on the handout. And then after you've done your formatting, proofreading is what happens when you put it into the computer and the computer makes a mess of it. Yeah,
so let's just be clear here, Joellen, because there's sometimes a lot of confusion on this. So after a copy edit is done, then either a writer is going to have their book, professionally formatted for publication, or they have a publisher who's going to do it, or they'll do it themselves. However it's done, there's a process. Vellum is great software to use if you're doing it yourself. It's very easy and intuitive to use, that you can format properly so that your book is going to show up as an ebook or a printed book in the right format, and physically it will be a pleasure to read. There won't be any weird things in there. Right. And so the reason, so you get your book formatted and now it's sitting there, and then comes proofreading. And at that point, you look at, you're looking at, like, there's an extra space here. There's a comma missing. There, you spelled color with a U and without a U, or like really, really minute things. By this point in the process, the book is done and you should be changing very, very little. So you change the formatted version, then make sure it hasn't mucked up any of the page breaks, etc.
Exactly.
And then you're done, right? It's off you go and you publish it. But it's a really important step to get it formatted right.
And I mean, a perfect example is if you use some image, you have an image and it puts in there, and all of a sudden, for some reason, it sets over a line, and you're reading along, and that line just disappeared. Now, if you're reading your own book, honestly, your brain will just fill it in, especially if it's like 1 or 2 words, or you turn the page, depending on what you're reading and what format, because reading from your phone versus an ebook versus a tablet versus, scrolling on your laptop are totally different, and how quickly you pick that up. But I've done that where I've gone, wait a minute, something's missing. And I'm in on my Kindle, and I'm like, and I realized, wow, this wasn't proofread, and they just lost this page. And it may be minor, but it distracted me from the story, and you lost me. And that's when you go,
Yeah.
And it's so, we have this much attention span nowadays. So please don't lose our attention span, because and it's not your fault, but it's so important to have that done. And you really want to go through that. And that's a great thing to have your beta friends and family and do that stuff, but make sure it's done. Don't overlook it. So now we're going to go into step 2, and step 1 was huge. I understand that, but we got to kind of get the foundation there. So certified story editors, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just a time check, we're at 20 minutes after, and we're only on step 2, so we got to pick it up.
That was the most of it. That's the bigger. So the certified story editors at the best price. And again, we're talking about using the tools we've been talking about. We're talking about using Storyteller if you're a do-it-yourselfer, which is the professional editing online for authors, using your track changes and all these other things. And why do you want to do this? Because you will save time and energy. If you can do all of developmental editing yourself with using Storyteller or these other things, it's really, really great, because you can come in to a certified story coach and they can confirm and take you, say, you know what, you're ready for line editing, which is honestly cheaper. And it's just, you've done a great job. If you're struggling and you're done it the first time, well, they can get it done for you, and they can dig in deeper. If you're already familiar with it, they can dig in deeper. There's other people, quite often, and this would be someone like myself, who says, I wrote the doggone thing. I am tired. Just take it. I don't want to see it for a couple weeks, and then come back and start after you've kind of done the foundation. And that's what a story coach can do. So it's depends upon where you are, but the more you can communicate within the same boundaries is great. The other thing is that if you're using Story Coach or Storyteller, once your story coach, your certified story coach is done, we give it back to you in the software. And this is really cool, because now you've got the embedded notes and you've got the intelligent assistant. So basically you're getting unlimited virtual coaching for as long as you need inside the software. So all you got to do is be part of that subscription, which, believe me, is way more affordable than the story coach themselves, but it gives you all of that. So you can work in this however you need to do it. And that's an individual path. You got to figure out what works for you, but it's really, really great, because then you know that when you leave that area, it's solid, it's sound, it's strong. And so then we move along onto line editing. And at this point you should not have any content editing, because that's for getting the pros in that if you're having trouble before that. So that's a very good way to move along. Oops. Malcolm, I love Malcolm. Met him in New York, and we were talking about editing, and it's just rewrite editing. This is from the master, of how it works, and it's just never really done. And this man has written a lot of books.
Yeah, so he's got a really interesting video up. If you just Google his name and 10,000 hour theory, it's 10-minute long video. And the thing that I really liked about it, he talks about a complex cognitive task. And he has everybody's familiar with his 10,000 hour theory, and it takes 10,000 hours to get really good at something. But what his latest statement on that is, with the evolution of technology, these 10,000 hours are really getting shortened. And it used to take years and years and years. And he uses chess as an example, become an expert chess player. But now the online tools for teaching chess are so good. People are learning at much quicker rate. And so I kind of equate that to Fictionary Storyteller and Story Coach, in that we've got an organized system that helps you learn it and helps you do it much, much faster. And so, for the first time, writers and editors are able to be really good at it without spending the 10,000 hours to get there, which is what I spent to figure it out, to develop Fictionary. So when I watched that video, I thought, well, that really resonates with me.
Yeah, I mean, and it is, that's data, it's artificial intelligence, it's all of this stuff, it's on a high. So again, if you've got a tool, I mean, maybe you enjoy Post-it notes, and maybe you enjoy Excel, and maybe you enjoy cross-referencing books, and that's great. But if you want to be a prolific writer and focus on, and have a career as a writer, or have, just establish yourself for whatever it may be, whatever your point is, there are so many tools to make it easier, and they're dependable, and they have so much more knowledge than you can possibly get in a couple of years even. So it's really out there, and so much of it is available free. So comparing on, when you're comparing the editors, you want to, what they do, different editors at different levels do different things. So it's just important to remember that. So step 3, our editing journey. This is what we're talking about. We're doing, are you revising? Are you doing that development? Are you doing the revisions? Or are you in the phase? Or are you ready to proof? If you know this, then we know where you are, and that helps us determine what you need out the door. If you don't know, we'll tell you. And this is how it works. Again, forward step, cha-cha-cha. So it's how it works there. But I love this little graphic. Editing is such a round and round space, and just depends upon where you are. And who can you trust? Well, not your mom, not your teacher, your colleague, and you only want to work with experienced, vetted, and certified professionals at this point, because things have changed. That's just the way it is. And this is what you should be able to ask for without any delay or pause on their behalf. And if they're telling you they have a non-disclosure agreement, they can't show you this, buyer beware, because you know what? We don't live in that world anymore. They should easily be able to say, look, go to Amazon here. People are willing and able to share what they've done, and there's nothing hid there. It's a little bit harder with, I would say, with academics, because they don't want to give anybody else credit. I can say that. They're still nobody edited it. But other than that, I think most of the developmental edits, and especially with the story coaches, people are proud to share their success and to show the tools. I mean, it just makes them more likable, which makes people want to buy more of the books. So pricing of editing. Editing's expensive, and it's gonna, the more you can self-edit prior to coming in, the better your price there. So what do you need? Where are you in the process? What do you want? And then, what did your editor tell you that you must have? What is required? So these can determine. Story coaches, people come in, they want to work with us for feedback. Right? I mean, you've got people who come back again and again, and they only want to work with you now, Christina. Not easy to do that.
No, and I mean, that's partly because the story coach edit gives a lot of information. I mean, the one thing I will add, I get asked a lot, should an editor discount for repeat customers? And I think, sure, if it's copy editing, line editing, etc. But on story editing, I usually recommend no. And the reason I say no is because when you're editing a series as a story coach editor, you're now doing more work. So the second book takes more work than the first, and the third takes more than the others, because as an editor, if you're doing a series, you're also responsible for the overall story arc. And so now you've got to read the second book in the series, edit it, but then go back to the first one and go, does it make sense in the context of the first one? Does the end of the first one lead nicely into the second one? Does the story arc okay? And then when the series is done, is the inciting incident in the book 1 a mirror of the climax in book 3? And so there's a lot of extra work as a story editor looking back. And it's partly why once a writer goes with a story coach editor, they want to stay with that person, because they get that flow through from the whole series of the book. And if you're taking on book 2 as an editor, it's really hard to find the time to go back and read book 1 if you weren't the editor for that book. And so, there, I just recommend to editors that they don't discount there, because they will end up spending more time, because it's a series, not less. They can't do it any faster.
I mean, if you were going to go back, and it's funny that it's up here, but if you were going to go back and have them reread the first one, it would be, I mean, it would be fair as an editor to charge them for a critique, because that's time spent. And unfortunately, you're probably going to find, you might even find mistakes there. And that happens. You know, we've talked behind the scenes that a lot of editors are going back after they've done this new system, and they've worked with a story coach, and they've worked with, you know, this systematic approach of editing, that now they're taking their books down and re-editing them. I mean, that's exciting. So what do you want from your editor? Do you want to critique? Do you just want to content edit? You know, do you need to fix the comprehension? Are you revising? Where are you? Do you need the copy edit, or you need that final one? So when do you start? You know, that's always a question. As you mentioned, we have to have a beginning, middle, and an end. And you're going to be in one of 4 phases. So you either have an outline, you've completed your self-editing, or you've just had enough and you need to move on. And that's totally okay to reach out for help at that point. But always before you share or distribute, because you can't put it out there. So what services do you need? It depends upon your status, what your challenges are as a writer, what your goals are as a writer, and what your editor says, you know, you have to have. And that we're going to, you know, straight up, we're going to tell you, this is what you need, and we're not going to give you anything less. And it's not because we're trying to boost you up. It's because if we let you walk out the door with anything less than what you need, we look bad. We failed as an editor to make you look professional. And by doing that and putting our name on it, then we, you know, it's not going to help our business. So we just can't take that risk. It's a teamwork. It really is. So where can you get help? Online. And they can always try out Storyteller, right? It's a great place to start. So we've got online tools and writing groups and beta readers, but you know, how much information you want to take in. So use those that you trust, and books, blogs, courses, never ending amount of information and tools out there, folks. As we said, 10,000 hours can be now just downloaded into our little chip here, and we're good to go. And lastly, why is it necessary? Why are you going to do this? Well, it's a huge investment. It's your baby, and it's your reputation out the door. So today's world, there's a million minimum right now, as we speak, 1 million people in the world typing away to a similar subject, genre, storyline, something, doing exactly, you know, you got a great new idea. It's how you present it. And you're going to get one shot, if that, to get to a publishing house, to an agent, or whatever it may be. And you need to make sure that you find an editor you trust, that you match with, and that you can do that. But everyone edits, and it's, you know, bestsellers come back. They have to secure their place. They have to know that they're good. So it's very, very important to keep that up. And it just overall is going to help you reach your goals there. So becoming a successfully published author, if it's in your process, then of course follow that. So tell your story. You're going to motivate. You know, these are the different things that we're looking at here, based upon what your goals are as an individual. And then these are all the different things that we do. We're making sure that your voice rings through, that it's consistent, it's professional, that is, you get one shot. You're presenting your ideas not only creatively, but they're supported with the base of the story arc and the different things that we need. And then we're giving you critiques and skills, basically telling not only what you don't do right, but also what you do well, so you can develop. And it is coaching. It is coaching. It's what you get. You know, it's helping people grow on that. So we've done 38 elements there. Check that out on YouTube while you're here. There's a lot to follow along. Told you that after the 10, I can go fast.
I know. And so if you'll allow me, I just want to do a little shout out to 2 authors who've done two different ways in this journey. So the first one, this came in my mail today. So this is why I'm very excited about it. I have to figure out which way to turn the book.
There you go.
This is by Beautiful Biters, and it's by Alice Bloom, who also writes under Emma Barrett, and it's a paranormal Dracula novel. So the beautiful thing about this one that is super exciting to me is that Ellis, she submitted her book to in Wattpad to their paid program, and she got rejected because they said the plot wasn't strong enough and her characters weren't strong enough. And so she then found Fictionary. She went and edited her book in Fictionary, and then she submitted it to the Wattpad Waddies, which is their big yearly award. And in 2020, she won it. And in 2021, she's an editor's pick up on Wattpad. So she's done amazing on the Self-Edit Journal. The other book that came today, and as you can see, if anyone tells me they've edited their book in Fictionary, it's published, I buy it. I'm building a bookshelf of just Fictionary books. So this one is Oil and Dust by Jamie Fairley. And so it's really interesting. So two things with this one. So she self-edited herself first in Storyteller, and then she went on and had a professional edit done. And her book is, it was chosen by Barnes & Noble as their best book in October 2021. And then this year, they have chosen it as their book they're putting up on as a serial book. And so just like Amazon Vella, they have a program where you can publish your book. You can publish it like this, obviously printed or ebook, but you can also publish it scene by scene and make money scene by scene. And it's their serialized fiction, which is a really interesting trend coming out today or this year, not today, but you know what I mean, in our generation. And both Fictionary Storyteller and Fictionary Story Coach edits are set up for it in that they're looking at scene by scene to make every scene really strong. And when you read the opening hooks in these books, and you start, I started flipping through entry hook, exit, and entry hook. Oh yeah, you could see it. Why these two books, one worked very well on Wattpad, which is serialized fiction, and the other on Barnes and Noble. It was chosen for it because its scenes are so strong. And so whether you self-edit it yourself or you have it done for you, it's a great process that you can have. Your book can be here.
in her hands and on her shelf. Well, that it's a sale, and that's good to go. But this is great. I mean, this is really proof in the pudding that scene by scene it has to be strong, and the scenes have to connect to the overall book. And then if that works and you've planned correctly, then it goes into the series, which is what we talked about before. And I'm not talking about the scene series. I'm talking about the next book. And the most prolific authors and the ones who are, I think it must be fun to just really get to kind of, but there's also a lot of stress. So you're going to learn how to really set up and exit and set up and exit, because it's a soap opera effect, in and out, and it's not all cliffhangers, but it's got to be enough to keep them hungry and keep them buying and pushing. Next one. And I'm like that, man. I'm in my Kindle and what else have they written? I mean, I get to the end. I love that. They didn't need to start putting that, but of course it's there, buy their next book. Yep. Buy their next book. Yep. My daughter the same. Yep. I want the next 3. I'm like,
Super important. So I just want to throw it out there. If people have questions, because it takes a few seconds for them to come through, feel free to put them up. We're happy to answer. Anything you want to ask about any of the sessions, anything about editing, anything about Fictionary, anything about first editing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something I want to mention. If this is confusing and you're trying to figure out what level of editing you need, or if you're trying to figure out where you are in the process or how this matches into what you want, the easiest thing to do, I mean, and you can use us as a sample there, is just go and get your free editing sample. Send us your full manuscript so that we can see it. And basically we have an editor who will be, an expert in your genre, in your division there, and they will respond within 24 hours. I've been doing this for over a decade or two now. And the thing is that, working in a team and having editors who've been with me, I mean, all of my editors have been with me at least 7 years or longer. It is set up, as you mentioned, to work with the same editors. We have a huge amount of people who just return year after year, and they're dedicated to the editors, and their editors are dedicated to them. It is a lovely symbiotic relationship that helps everyone succeed. as the editors become better editors with their certification as story coaches, and as the authors become more prolific and they're publishing and successful. It's really fun and exciting to be part of somebody else's success. I think everyone wants that.
Yeah.
It's so great.
So I'll just remind everybody, the links are at the top for handouts and everything, whatever you need. It's all at the top. Just scroll to the top of the comments. I'll send out a replay, and in the replay there will be the links to the first 3 sessions of the 4. In case you missed one, they will all be there. And yeah, that wraps it up for the Essentials of Editing in 4 parts by Christina and Joellen.
Thank you so much. Remember to subscribe, follow, like, and if you have any last minute questions or concerns, you can reach out to us at firstediting.com. We'll be glad. We are real people who answer the phone, we answer your chat, we answer your emails. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on there, and that's pretty exciting in today's world of tech. So we'd love to talk to you about what you got going on and help you succeed.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.